Cold open. When people hear firewall vulnerability, they often imagine a single box that only matters to the network team. That is the wrong mental model. A firewall or VPN appliance is a trust gateway. It decides who gets into remote access, what traffic crosses boundaries, which logs describe an incident, and sometimes which credentials sit near the edge of the business. When that gateway needs urgent patching, the question is not only, is there a CVE? The question is, how much of the company depends on this device staying trustworthy? Today's question is simple. When a batch of firewall and VPN vulnerabilities lands at once, how should defenders separate internet panic from operational priority? The trigger for today's deep dive is a set of WatchGuard Fireware OS and mobile VPN records published in NVD on July 3, 2026, with WatchGuard cert advisory pages referenced by those records. The highest severity item in the set is CVE 2026-13368. NVD describes it as a race condition in LDAP authentication for mobile user VPN with IKF2. The record says a remote unauthenticated attacker could exploit the issue to crash the process or potentially execute code, and it carries a CVSS version 4 score of 9.2, critical. Another record, CVE 2026-13084, describes a remote unauthenticated denial of service condition in Fireware OS via specially crafted IKF2 messages. CVE 2026-8247 describes an out-of-bounds write that may allow an unauthenticated attacker on the same local network segment to execute arbitrary code. NVD says that one affects Fireware OS 11.0 through 11.12.4 Update 1, 12.0 through 12.12, and 2025.1 through 2026.2. The same July 3 cluster also includes several high-severity issues that require privileged authentication, out-of-bounds writes and networked, the command line interface, IKStubbed, and WAGENT, a path traversal issue in the management web UI, and a firmware validation bypass related to backup and restore. There is also a medium-severity hard-coded fallback encryption key issue affecting access portal resource credentials in some FireCluster circumstances. A separate WatchGuard mobile VPN with SSL Windows client record describes local privilege escalation to system. That list sounds technical, but the security lesson is bigger than any one bug. Edge appliances combine 3 risk properties. They are exposed to hostile networks. They often sit in front of important identity and access flows. And they can be harder to patch than normal servers because downtime affects offices, remote users, partners, and incident visibility. Here is the central thesis: firewall patching is not a housekeeping chore. It is business risk management for the boundary between your identity system, your users, your cloud workloads, and the open internet. Let's separate the risk layers. First is exploitability. A remote unauthenticated vulnerability in a VPN or IKE path deserves faster attention than an issue that requires a trusted administrator account, because the attacker may not need stolen credentials first. Second is reachability. A management interface reachable from the internet is very different from one limited to a dedicated admin network. Third is blast radius. A device that protects one lab segment is not the same as a hub for every remote employee. Fourth is detectability. If the compromised device is also where you expect network logs to come from, your telemetry may be least reliable exactly when you need it most. The AI angle here is not that these CVEs are caused by AI. The responsible framing is different. AI-assisted security operations can help inventory devices, summarize vendor advisories, draft patch windows, and prioritize assets. But it can also create false confidence if teams ask an assistant for a yes or no answer without verifying official sources. For vulnerability management, AI should accelerate triage, not replace asset ownership, change control, and proof that patches actually landed. A safe technical explanation is enough. Some records are memory safety style issues such as out-of-bounds writes or use after free conditions. Those are dangerous because software may read or write outside the memory area it intended to use. Depending on the bug and mitigations, outcomes can range from crashes to code execution. Other records involve path traversal, where input handling can allow file writes outside the expected location. Firmware validation bypass is about the integrity of what the appliance accepts during backup or restore workflows. Hard-coded key issues are about whether sensitive stored credentials are protected by unique, appropriate cryptography. Notice what defenders do not need from a public video: exploit strings, packet layouts, or step-by-step reproduction. What defenders do need is an order of operations. Step 1. Identify exposure. Build a current list of WatchGuard Firebox and mobile VPN assets, their Fireware OS versions, whether mobile user VPN with IK of 2 is enabled, whether LDAP authentication is used, whether access portal is configured, whether the device is in a Fire cluster, and whether management services are reachable only from trusted admin networks. If your asset inventory cannot answer that in an hour, the inventory gap is part of the incident. Step 2. Patch or mitigate based on reachability and role. Start with remotely reachable VPN and IKE paths, internet-facing appliances, and central remote access gateways. Then handle management plane and authenticated admin issues, because stolen administrator credentials turn those into real risk. For devices in sensitive segments, do not wait for perfect exploit intelligence before scheduling maintenance. Step 3. Reduce management exposure. Management web UI and command line access should not be generally reachable. Use dedicated admin networks, VPN restrictions, strong multi-factor authentication, least privilege admin roles, and logging that leaves the appliance. If an attacker needs administrator access to exploit a bug, make obtaining and using that access harder, noisier, and less reusable. Step 4. Review logs with humility. For remotely reachable issues, look for unusual restarts, IKE negotiation anomalies, unexplained VPN authentication failures, unexpected configuration changes, new admin accounts, modified VPN profiles, unusual outbound connections, and gaps in logging. If a device might be compromised, collect evidence carefully and rotate secrets that could have been exposed through the appliance or associated access portal resources. Step 5. Treat local privilege escalation in the VPN client as endpoint risk. CVE 2026-13079 concerns the Windows Mobile VPN with SSL client, not only the firewall appliance. That means endpoint management matters. Update clients, remove stale installers, and remember that a local privilege escalation can turn a compromised user session into deeper workstation control. For executives, the impact is easy to underestimate. A firewall outage interrupts business. A firewall compromise can be worse: unauthorized access, broken segmentation, hidden traffic, exposed credentials, and uncertainty about what happened. That is why emergency patch windows for edge security devices should be pre-approved before the emergency, not negotiated while a critical advisory is trending. For engineering and security teams, the payoff is practical. You cannot make every appliance bug disappear. You can make the exposed surface smaller, the patch process faster, the credentials less reusable, and the logs more independent. The middle of the story answers our opening question: separate panic from priority by ranking vulnerabilities according to unauthenticated reachability, internet exposure, business role, and available patches, not by CVE headlines alone. What should you watch next? Watch for whether any of these records are added to known exploited lists by government agencies or vendor updates. Watch for scanning against IKE and VPN services. Watch for proof of concept chatter, but do not wait for it if you run affected versions in exposed roles. Watch for follow-up guidance from WatchGuard, NVD enrichment, and your own managed security providers. The conclusion is straightforward. Edge devices are identity infrastructure, cloud access infrastructure, and incident visibility infrastructure all at once. When WatchGuard Fireware OS or mobile VPN advisories arrive in a cluster, the right response is not fear. It is disciplined triage, verify affected versions from vendor and NVD records, prioritize remote unauthenticated paths, restrict management access, patch quickly, inspect logs, rotate exposed secrets where needed, and prove the work with inventory data. That is how a firewall CVE becomes a controlled maintenance event instead of tomorrow's breach headline.